we don't want to write off half the year. Every year, we'll be stuck on this hamster wheel for life.
Welcome back to another episode of the Fasting Method podcast. This is Coach Terri Lance, and I am joined today by Megan Ramos. Megan, it has been a while since we've been able to do this. How are you?
I'm doing well. We've been busy. We had our last baby, a girl, and she overbaked. She was nearly 42 weeks by the time she debuted. So I've been away a little longer than I thought I would be, but it's great to be back. It's great to connect with you. And I'm excited to talk about our topic today because it's exactly what I'm doing and what I'm going through. So I've had these kids now, and I felt a tremendous amount of relief after I birthed my daughter. I've loved every minute of motherhood. But I am ready to take care of myself a little bit. I am ready to start optimizing everything that's been thrown off by pregnancy and hormone changes the last couple of years. I'm eager to get my body back. I feel like I've been a slave to the whole process of fertility and kids. And now I get to sort of refocus and rebuild me. So with that being said, it's still a really hectic season of life that I'm in, and that's not going to change anytime soon. So I'm really trying to focus on strategies that help with that, just like so many of you who are listening out there are focusing on right now.
I love it. I think it's such an important time. And I was thinking earlier today that you and I had a conversation like this before when we talked about holiday season, but I think summer is a great time to remember, we're moving into July now. It is not a write-off. If you've been struggling, there is plenty of time to turn things around and make things a more stable time for you. So similar to where you are with things, other people may be a little bit off track. Maybe they've already done some traveling, a lot of neighborhood get-togethers and things. And the temptation sometimes is to just write it off and think, well, I'll just start again in September. But we've still got a good 2 strong months to really make changes in our habits, in the trajectory of where our body is going weight-wise and health marker-wise. So I'm excited to get to talk about this as well.
I think a lot of people too can use the summer as a great learning opportunity to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And then they've got a good chunk of the fall to work on areas that they'd like to see improvement in before going into the holiday season. Because the summertime spans over a few months. The holiday season really spans over a couple of months. We don't want to write off half the year. Every year, we'll be stuck on this hamster wheel for life. Something I know, Terri, you talk about a lot is that this is a transformation. This is not a diet, and we have to transform our relationship with food too. The summer and the holidays make that a little bit tricky because there are more carbohydrates that pop up. But there's so many great tools and strategies and things you can use to help make your body a lot more resilient towards carbohydrates. Even when it's a holiday season, even when you've got some insulin resistance issues. So these periods of time, they're not write-offs. If you're busy, if you have travel, if you have visitors, if you have to eat 3 times a day, if you're going to be eating out at restaurants, there's a lot that you can do to really succeed. You might not be losing tons of weight every week, but you could still be losing half a pound on a weekly basis for the summer. Or you can get really great practice at figuring what your body needs to maintain. Sometimes that's the big victory there, especially if you are traveling and eating at a lot of restaurants. How cool would that be to come home and maybe be up a pound of inflammation that you drop in a couple of days? That's outside of your control. But otherwise, you have maintained all of your great metabolic health and your weight loss goals.
Absolutely. When I think of navigating what you just described, one of the thoughts that I have for me and my journey, and also for my clients and members at TFM, is you need to create a little bit of strategery. You need to think of what are your strategies that you're going to use. If you look over the next week and see that you have 3 social events, are they just 3 kind of blowout events, or do you strategize and think about, okay, there are some ways that I can support myself, bringing in some more carbohydrate, like you said, just based on what's going to be there. For some people, it's the adult beverages. And it's like, okay, well, maybe I don't combine both of those at the same event. So again, that strategy of how do I support my body in managing this? And as you said, do some experimenting to learn what really supports my body, rather than I have to buckle down and just not have one single carb and not ever have a snack over the summer, and really start thinking about how do I do this more strategically so that the impact of those choices doesn't derail me.
Several years ago, I had just reached all of my weight loss goals and metabolic health goals. And then I had the opportunity to go to Europe for 6 weeks with some friends. And it was sort of a once in a lifetime opportunity because we were going to be starting the IDM clinic, which is what the fasting method used to be called, intensive dietary management, about 8 weeks out. And life was just going to become very hectic at that point. But I was so scared to go. I almost turned down the trip because I was afraid of gaining weight. But I decided, what are some rules that we can have? And I think that it's important for all of us to be realistic and have these rules. I knew that I was going to be going to Italy for a significant portion of that trip, and that I would probably eat more paleo low carb style in France and in Greece, but Italy was a big part of it, and that was going to be troublesome because those were all my problematic foods that got me into some hot water in the first place. So how was I going to navigate that? Well, if I was going to have carbs at one meal, I wasn't going to have them at the other meal on a 2 meal a day routine. That was my hard and fast rule. And if I knew that some days I was going to be eating dinner really close to going to bed, those carbs would be at lunch. They wouldn't be at dinner time. At dinner, you can stick to meat, you can stick to fish and some vegetables and salads. You don't have to lean into the carbs. So those were hard and fast rules that I had for myself during that trip. And overall, the entire trip, I lost 10 pounds, an additional 10 pounds. And then for my 40th birthday a couple of years ago, I lost 7 pounds going to Italy for 2 weeks. During that 2 week time, I kept the same rules. If I ate carbs at lunch, I didn't have them at dinner. If I was going to be eating dinner late, I wasn't going to have carbs at that meal either. If I was going to indulge in something like a dessert, like gelato, for example, it was going to be at a meal time at the end of the meal. It wasn't just going to be, oh, we ate lunch 2 hours ago, dinner's in 2 hours or 3 hours, and we're just walking around and I'm going to grab one and just kind of eat it plain all on its own in this mini fasting period. No. So these rules really help, and they enable you to still immerse yourself in your trip and be able to keep up socially and enjoy some of these things, especially if you are traveling and you want to enjoy, not necessarily enjoy carbs or bad food, but sort of enjoy some of the more native foods to where you are going and immerse yourselves in the culture. You can do it. There's a lot of different and safe ways that you can indulge, but setting up some rules for yourself, I think, are pretty simple rather than going in with the mindset. And maybe Terry, this is something you can speak to, but when we go in with this, I'm going to be perfect mindset, I'm going to go to Italy, I'm not going to eat one carb, I'm going to be the most keto person ever, and you're still going through your journey or just realistic at any point in your life, even once you've entered maintenance, it can really kind of set you up if you end up going out and then saying, oh, to heck with it, I'm going to have that pizza. And then suddenly you're just like, oh, to heck with it, I'm just going to eat whatever I want on this entire trip, and then come home with a lot of regrets.
Yeah, I think your example of setting some boundaries for yourself, but also setting some plans. Your plans included, I know I'm going to eat some foods that I don't normally eat at home. How can I do that in a way that still supports me and my goals and doesn't take me off track? I often think too, many of us watch things like the number on the scale, the CGM numbers. Some people measure ketones, whatever it is. And they look at, okay, I ate this food. What did that do to my ketones? Or what did that do to the scale the next day? I encourage people to also pay attention to what does it do behaviorally and psychologically and physiologically. Is your hunger up? Are your cravings up? So for example, last night we had people over for dinner, And oftentimes when people come for dinner, their thought is there must be dessert. And so we have kind of learned to avert that by asking one of them to bring berries. So someone brought this gigantic bowl of the most beautiful berries, and I made whipped cream. So it was an amazing dessert that doesn't do damage to me. So I was very excited. And at the end of the evening, there was still half of this gigantic bowl of beautiful berries left. And the woman who brought them said, "Would you like to keep some berries?" And I paused for a moment. And again, berries are not villains. But I know for me, that was already about as much glucose as my body could really handle well. And if I saved a bunch for today and tomorrow, that stacking it up like that was just going to be a little too much for me. So I asked her to go ahead and take those home. So again, it's not that I don't have things like that are a little off for me as far as amount of glucose. Just think about how much of this can my body manage and how will it set me up for the next day. Right now, I'm in a period of fasting every other day. Does eating that today make it difficult for me to fast tomorrow? So maybe I really need to think about when, how much, which meal, all of those things to help strategize.
It's amazing how the strategies that we teach people over at the fasting method, and when we implement them, how much of a dramatic impact that can have on our numbers, our how we feel, our cravings. I mean, it's a whole domino effect, right? So Terry's just discussed, paying attention to your feelings and your hunger and your urges, your cravings, and all of that's really important too. And I will say, during this pregnancy, I struggled a lot with nausea and heartburn. So I ate I ate whatever I ate when I ate it. I stuck to paleo foods. I didn't eat processed and refined garbage. I gained 12 pounds in 42 weeks of pregnancy, pretty much. So I wasn't going overboard, but I really struggled to eat because I was so sick the entire time. So I gave myself a lot of grace, right? If I felt like I could eat some sweet potato, I ate some sweet potato. And meal windows and timing and everything was kind of messy. And then my husband, like so many of us with our spouses, significant others, family members we live with, he fell into the same traps as me and was eating some of the foods that I would eat. Like if I felt like I could stomach a sweet potato and it might make eating the rest of dinner easier, I would eat some of that sweet potato first and eat the dinner. And then he would get into those habits. And then sure enough, he's also up 12 pounds in pregnancy. Mine went out mostly in a baby. His stayed on his body. So now we have kind of these sketchy habits, things we've not done and have been hard rules for us in the past. We've kind of tossed them aside and we're both trying to get back on track slowly but surely. And we realized, the first few weeks postpartum, it wasn't easy for him to do. For me, it was a little bit more natural to say these were my rules and these are how I'll eat carbs and these are how I'll eat throughout the day. And it has been easier to go back. But for him, it wasn't as easy to go back. And we're both still feeling like kind of hungry or more cravings for things all of the time. We struggle a bit more with fruit. So we are wearing CGMs this summertime, both of us. And I don't necessarily think I need one, but my husband's really benefiting from it. And he's able to sort of tie in what it is now. So an example of that would be he ate some cherries the other day. And then he was feeling really hungry the next morning when he woke up and was feeling a little bit out of sorts. And he just assumed he had a bad night of sleep or stress or this or that. It couldn't be the cherries that he ate last night after dinner. Then he goes to do it again, but he's wearing the Dexcom Stilo now, and he sees how crazy high his blood sugar levels went. And he's going to bed 60 minutes after that. And then he's waking up feeling those crazy cravings and things. And it was a big aha moment for him. And, he thinks he's a 6'2", 6'3", big guy, can handle a cup of cherries, but it's a lot of sugar. And sometimes we lose sight of these things, or we're not quite sure where we are struggling with them because we're not eating garbage, but these cravings are still here. The numbers can sometimes really help tie in and connect. Oh, I'm feeling this way the next day because I did this. And he said, I didn't think it was that bad. I didn't think I was having that many cherries for my system. I knew it was kind of late, but again, like, there's fiber in it too. I didn't expect it to be as bad. He's like, it was pretty horrific on the meter. So sometimes over the course of the summer, people are always asking, like, what should they track? Which devices and gizmos and things should they get? I think a CGM can be pretty interesting during summer times and holiday seasons. Not necessarily super interesting outside of that, unless you're struggling, but it can really kind of teach you a lot about it. And one thing that we've been really talking a lot about in our household is, okay, like I have to eat more carbs right now because I'm breastfeeding a big baby with a ferocious appetite. So how can I do that? And it's like I can eat the carbs on their own and see my glucose shoot up to 180, or I can eat the carbs after having some protein and some vegetables and see it shoot up to 130, or I can add in other protective factors like vinegars and use more fats and be more mindful of portion sizes and see my blood sugar levels go up to 110 and still eat relatively the same carbohydrate. So the data can sometimes help tie in what you're physically feeling and help give reasoning to why you're feeling that way and why you might not necessarily be seeing results or be struggling with the fasting when you think that your diet is a little bit more aligned with what it should be. So I'll tell you, there's a big difference in eating a small portion of potatoes after having some steak and some Brussels sprouts than it is having vinegar on those potatoes, or adding a small salad with some vinegar and maybe some chia seeds or hemp hearts to add more fiber bulk before having that meal. And that you can still have the same meal, but dress it up a little bit differently and get great metabolic results instead of questionable metabolic results that are going to leave you sleeping better and feeling better the next day.
Megan, your example reminds me of something I sometimes see with my clients and other people working through their journey with us at TFM. And although I totally get this, I'm going to become very unpopular when I suggest this. Sometimes people treat the CGM as like the general. It's going to tell me yes or no. And then guess what? They hate the CGM. And then they go to Italy or they go on vacation or they have a family member come stay with them and they don't wear the CGM. They feel like they need a holiday from the CGM. And I think the more we can use it as a proactive curiosity thing, for your husband to be able to see, oh, that's interesting. I wonder, what if I could change this? And for you to even know the comparison of if you eat those carbs on their own, if you eat them after protein and fiber and fat, or if you add vinegar to them, tells me that you're really using it less as the general and more as a curiosity experimentation piece that just helps you know, how do I strategize from here? All right, my glucose went up this high as I did that. No shame, no blame. What do I want to do next? And so I encourage people, don't take the CGM off while you're starting on a big vacation, but don't obsess about it and treat it as the iron bars that are going to tell you if you can have something or not. Learn from that so that you really see the impact of things and empower yourself to make decisions that work well.
I think people often think it's 2026 and technology. If you pay attention to the news, it sounds like we're going to take over the world, and we're all going to end up having pet robots in a week or two from now. Um, so we have a lot of faith that technology is pretty superior and is pretty accurate across the board. And I'll say with the CGMs, it's not. The standard, what is accepted by the US FDA, which is no different than Health Canada, is that the CGM glucose reading is within plus or minus 20 milligrams per deciliter of your actual blood glucose in a lab at that time. That's a huge window of error. So with these things, the only thing that you can pay attention to is trends. The trends are often accurate. The exact numbers are not accurate. If your meter is reading 100, it could be 120, it could be 80. somewhere in between. So you can't make yourself a slave to these numbers or, see that the numbers, oh, it's 149 milligrams per deciliter. That's garbage. I failed, yada, yada. And it could be 129, which is a lot better, right? Or it could be a lot worse. We don't really know. So when you are utilizing these tools, the most important thing is to get you to learn how your body responds to certain foods and how you can modify them, or how your body responds to stress is another big reason why I would recommend someone wears but you can't put your eggs all in one basket when it comes to understanding like that if it says your A1C is 5.7, it might not be 5.7, it could be 4.8. You don't know, these numbers can be off, but it's the trends that you need to look at. So you have to look at it with curiosity. You can't get bogged down if you see that you are wearing a CGM that always seems to be about 20 milligrams per deciliter higher than your finger prick or your lab test results. Don't rip it off and throw it out, because it's only the trends that you care about, and modifying those trends and trying to create stability amongst those numbers, whatever the reading is. So I'll say I'm wearing a Dexcom G7 because I have a few connections, and it tends to be a little bit more accurate, but it still can be kind of all over the place. I think like 1 out of every 4 sensors I have, I get numbers that I know are super off to me, but I don't throw away the sensor. I monitor the trends. My husband, who's not as well connected despite being married to me, he has the Dexcom Stilo. I've been actually really impressed with it because most of my experience with it's been through clients. So now I'm seeing it a lot while he's on paternity leave in real time. And it's been such a great tool that's so easily accessible to anybody and pretty economical as far as these type of devices go. My experience with it from a clinical point of view is that it tends to read quite a bit higher on average than what our blood tests would actually show. But it's been fairly consistent with my husband. He's able to pick up the trends, and he doesn't get bogged down in the exact numbers. It's the trends that he's looking at. And it's been such a reliable tool for that when we've compared it to seeing trends in his finger prick data from our keto mojos. So these are great things for the summertime. Like Terry said, you shouldn't be taking them off, but you have to observe them with curiosity rather than judgment. Getting mad at them is like kind of like talking to a toddler and being mad at a toddler, right? They don't have the mental capacity to even understand what it is that you're mad about or process it and how they should do things differently. So being mad at a toddler is kind of like insanity in itself, right? So this is sort of the same thing with the numbers. If you get bogged down because you see 180, well, who the heck knows if it's 180? It's not a reason to write it off or to get mad about it. So it's a lot of when we use these tools, whether it's ketones or fancy scales or Zozo fit suits or all of these type of things that we might be into, it's really about looking at the trends of curiosity and helping those guide better habits and shape your eating in different ways. And they can be really great tools if used appropriately.
Absolutely. One of the things I also think about for summer is, we've said this quite a bit recently at TFM, it's about having a summer that you don't have to recover from. And I really think about this going back to diet mentality. And I'm aware that so many of us have lived so much of our life in weight loss mode, where we're just kind of gunning it with the most severe things we can think of to lose weight, and then the backslide period, and then go back into dieting and losing, and then backslide. And it does tend to kind of happen seasonally. We kind of back off in the summer, and then we hit it hard in the fall, and then the holidays come, and then we try to hit it hard in the winter, but it's cold outside. That we're always in this, I've got to be losing weight. Oh, I'm doing okay. It really keeps us in that back and forth, I believe, of diet mentality. And I think all that you're really describing, Megan, and what we're talking about today is just working on managing a more stable lifestyle, experimenting with some things, learning how your body works so you're not recovering from the summer. You're not recovering from a trip. You're not going to have to recover from the holidays. You're going to have strategies in place that just keep things more on the path that you want them to be on longer term. And with that said, Megan, I'm curious. I know we have a program beginning at TFM to really kind of help people with this. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we're launching our summer toolkit for metabolic health. All of our tools, tips, and tricks that us coaches, our TFM team, have used over the years to try to help people navigate the summer and learn just how to live a more balanced lifestyle. An example would be I was talking to a member the other day and she was terrified. Her kid had to go to an ice cream social at his new school, and she wasn't quite sure like how to manage that. Does she hold herself back? She doesn't want to expose her kid to this. Like, what does she do? And so we were chatting back and forth a bit. And I said, well, like everyone's talking about GLP-1s. Do you know that our body makes GLP? So she had had a friend who had had a lot of weight loss success with the GLP-1. Well, our body can make that naturally. So you don't want to overeat ice cream or maybe not eat it at all. You don't want your kid to overeat it. So what can you do? Well, we can eat really protein-rich foods before you go. So we talked about what an ideal meal would be both for her and her kid and her family before they went to this place. And sure enough, the kid was just so satiated. They had no interest in eating ice cream and just wanted to play with the other kids. And herself didn't have ice cream because she was so satiated and she was able to boost her GLP-1 naturally. These type of things. Like she was so scared, thought she couldn't go, she couldn't socialize with new parents. Their kid was going to become an outcast immediately. There's all these things we're going to encounter in our lives. And the summer, they come at us fast and ferociously in the summertime, all of these social aspects of it. So how great would it be to learn strategies and tools to help keep you resilient when you go into these settings? And even if they did decide to eat some ice cream, they would have a lot less of it. And they would have a lot less of a glucose and insulin spike afterwards because of how they ate going into it. So we've got these numerous sort of tricks and strategies, and so many people earlier this year have debated with me, should I go on a GLP-1 for the summertime? Because I've made so much weight loss progress and health progress over the winter. And I don't want to lose that. But the summer we have these visitors, this trip. My husband's retiring. We're going caravanning across the US. And absolutely, you can take the GLP-1 and you can get great weight loss results and you can maintain those results if you adjust your lifestyle. Or there's natural things that we can do to help get your body to produce a lot of it on its own and make you more resilient. There's tons of eating strategies that we talked a lot about. There's different tools and things that we use and how we best use them. So we have this like crazy load of tools that we're always using and we're talking about on podcasts and things like this. And we finally created it into a structured course. And it's hopefully going to be something that we repeat every summer to help give people the strategies and tools they need to experience some gains in health improvement and some losses in body fat, or even just maintain during the summer. We're going to be focusing a lot on providing you with just accountability and support and tips and tricks and tools. You'll hear from myself, from Terri, from all of our team members. We'll be getting great coaching and accountability support from Jamie on our team throughout the summer. And we are starting on Monday, July 13th. We're going to kick things off. I'll be talking the first week about how to set yourself up, my top 3 things for setting yourself up for summer success, so you can start implementing those tools. So if you're looking to build up a summertime toolbox that you can carry on for future summers or even the holiday season, I think this is a great course for you to jump into. You do not need to be a TFM member, TFM coaching client. Everyone can get access to learn about our summer toolbox and metabolic health strategies, and you'll get access to our community as well during this time.
Fantastic. I can't wait. Looking forward to that starting soon. Well, Megan, thank you so much for this conversation today. I'm so excited to have you back, have you come back to the podcast more with me. So take good care, everyone. Remember, you can keep this summer steady. You don't have to recover from this. And we've got lots of tools that we can help with.
All right, everyone, it's great to be back. I look forward to chatting with you more about more strategies, and happy fasting.